Welcome everybody to the MINDtheGEPs Open Forum. Today we're looking at our approach to evidence-based policies for gender equality plans based on facts and figures that help us take the cultural and structural actions that are needed to achieve gender equality. MINDtheGEPs partners are developing and implementing gender equality plans, or GEPs as we call them, built on data from across their organizations. And today we'll listen to 3 speakers presenting some results from the qualitative and quantitative studies in 7 of our partner organizations that are implementing gender equality plans. So first we'll hear Cristina Solera, who's the coordinator of MINDtheGEPs. She's an associate professor of sociology at the University of Turin, and she's also part of the Research Center for Women's and Gender Studies. Followed by Manuela Naldini, who's a professor of sociology at the University of Turin. And then we'll hear from Lucio Pisacane, who's a researcher at the Italian National Research Council, CNR. So just a couple of housekeeping notes. We will ask you to please stay muted and ask your questions in the chat. And then at the end, we'll do a Q&A session. Because this will be recorded and shared on YouTube and the MINDtheGEPs Open Forum page. And none of the participants will be recorded. It will just be the speakers' faces. So don't worry about that. And then we have developed recommendations based on this data that are summarized in a policy brief that's available in English, Spanish, and from yesterday also in Serbian. And we're expecting a Polish and an Italian version of that as well. And I will share links to that in the chat during the meeting. So Cristina, please.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for those that are taking part to this forum. My role is to give you a very brief introduction to MINDtheGEP. I guess most of you are familiar with it, but just few notes. And then try to give you some insights on the quantitative, myself, and the qualitative Manuela, research that we did in order to have data useful to design effective gender equality plans. Next. Okay, what's the starting point of our project and the sister project in designing GEPs? Well, the starting point is the evidence that everybody knows, but just to remember that despite progress, gender inequality are still there, and usually they are in 3 different areas, phases that are captured by 3 metaphors, very well known in the literature. The leaky pipeline, the fact that we lose women the more we go on, so women are more likely to leave the academic career. The glass door, women have more difficulties in entering stable positions, and the glass ceilings, women are less likely or more slowly to reach top position, decision-making bodies and full professorship. And it's this evidence is well known from she figures, for example, but then each context is different, and because gender, if we use the famous expression from Barbara Riesman, is a social structure that is characterized by intersected phenomenon process dimensions, and so they need complex data to be able to capture the push and pull factor that construct and deconstruct gender inequality. So what we did in our project, it was because it's finished now, it was to dedicate time to collect a complex type of data in order then to have some insights from mechanisms and process behind gender inequalities to design effective GEPs. From gaps to GEPs. The kind of data we have collected. Next. Well, okay. Just sorry to give you an idea who we are for those that is the first time you come from the forum. So MINDtheGEP is an Horizon 2020 Science with and for Society, where I'm the coordinator, and it's a 4-year project. Well, our aim is to assess and then implement actions for gender equality in these different implementing partners that, as we see, we are partners from different countries, but also we are partners not only academic. Most of us are university, but there are also not university public center like the one Lucio is part, the CNR, and we have also private. So it's interesting that in consortium we can also compare whether process mechanisms and type of gender inequalities and responses are the same in different type of organization. Then we have 3 supporting partners that are following the communication, dissemination, and monitoring of gender equality plans. Uppsala is our partner to which Josephine takes part. Just to give an overview. What we did as a first step, that was the first work package that we called Assessing Gender Imbalances, was to collect a different kind of data necessarily to capture the complexity of gender inequalities. So quantitative and qualitative data at the macro level to have an idea of the context, the national and the European context in which organization and careers are designed. Qualitative data at the quantitative data at the meso level in the direction of the gender budget, and we collected huge number of indicators through a shared list of indicators that we prepared through different meetings, and to have an overview of the gender status of equality and inequality across the different dimensions in each implementing organization. And then data at the meso level. Next. Data at the meso level, at the micro level, trying to have opinions, perception narratives of those that are doing research in these implementing organizations. So quantitative data, especially a web survey, I'll tell you in a moment, and qualitative data, a huge number of interviews, to 3 different kind of target, to key informants such as rectors, vice-rectors, departmental directors, and then qualitative interview with researchers, both early career researchers and late career researchers, both men and women, and both STEM and SSAH. And well, Manuela will give you some insights from this huge qualitative data collection, while I'll tell you something about this quantitative data at the micro level, the web survey. Yes. This data collection has been possible through the synergy of another project that it's fair to mention. So MINDtheGEP was in dialogue with another project which is called Gender in Academia, on gender inequality in Italian academia, that started before us, and Manuela is the PI of that project, and so we could benefit from the qualitative, especially the qualitative work, but also the quantitative work that was done within that project, and see how to apply these instruments also to study gender inequalities within our consortium across different European countries. Okay, let's start with give you some, now go on, because I think maybe, okay, so what we give you in the short time, we try to give you some overview of the main results that came from this assessing gender imbalances, that is the prerequisite to design a gender equality plans. It was our work package 2, if you want to have a look in the web page. Some insights from the web survey, then I give the ball to Manuela for the insights from the qualitative part, and then Lucio will try to give you some insights from how our GEPs in our consortium are trying to tackle this empirical evidence that we found. Okay, the web survey, it has been a doc survey that was collected within our research performing organization, trying to focus on those dimensions that are usually not covered by national data, like the data from the ministry, or that are usually data on some on objective passages and timing in careers, but little we know from quantitative point of view on views that those that do research have views on how university work, how research work, and how it should work, and views on how gender inequalities are in their organization and department, and also how much policy should be done to tackle this. And the web survey was realized in 2002, and here we focus on the section that was the most innovative one. It was designed by us. Questions on what people think, what researcher, but also academic staff, but here we focus on the researcher staff. So the administrative and the academic staff, but here we focus on the academic. And try to see which factors people think that they count and they should count in winning a stable position. And the factors are around the core themes that we know that they can govern recruitment. And actually, we will see that also in the qualitative interviews, these dimensions are coming out from the interviews. So we ask people if they think that excellence, internal network, external network, or the ideal that the academic ideal should be someone that always work, and doesn't have the right to other spheres. If these matter and should matter, that in technical terms is what is called positive and normative beliefs. So how the university selection, university or research perform organization selection works and how it should work. And here's some, next, okay, just some, a couple of slides of figures just to give you some ideas of which kind of data we collected. Here is the figures on positive beliefs. So how much people think that these different factors that you read really count in winning a stable position. So we are focused on the Glassdoor that we know is the first node in gender scissor in a career. And I'm not showing graphs on gender, but what an interesting results, at least in Italian universities, it's in Italian research organization, is that gender doesn't really matter in differentiating beliefs on what counts and what should count, but what really matters is position. There is a divide not by gender, but there is not a divide by differences between early career and late career. And indeed, if we look at the percentage you see is the percentage of people that say that they think each factor count much and very much. And what we see next, go next 3. So we see 1, 2, 3. Okay, thanks. What we see is that there is a difference between early career and late career. For early career researcher, there is the belief that to win a position, the meritocratic criteria like publishing a lot or international network do matter, but they don't matter alone. There are still the old style, at least in Italian university, which is the cooptation. So there is a mix still of meritocratic and sponsorship, internal sponsorship. And this is interesting because this is not the view of late career, that late career are actually those that then sit in the selection committees. And there are those that are more promoting the rhetoric, we say, or the beliefs in the importance of meritocracy. And they declare that internal push, sponsor, we say, cooptation is something that is less important. And also there is another little difference between early career and late career that has to do with what is called in literature the unconditional worker model. How much people think that it's necessary to adhere to adopt this unconditional worker model, or we could say also workaholism, putting work always first, in order to get promoted or to get recruited. And again, there is a bit gap between early career, that early career researcher think that showing that you are always available is something that is important. And this is not by chance, because actually these are those that have been more affected by the neoliberal turn of the university and the precariousness of research in a way. And this also publish or perish that we will see in the qualitative narratives are very strong in the narratives of young researchers. So in a way, they feel the pressure that they have to work, and always put work first. Go ahead, thanks. This is positive bliss. What people think that count in get recruited in winning a stable position. Next. It's about normative beliefs. So not what count, but what should count, how the world should be. And again, we see that from early career researcher, this publish or perish and put the work always first is something that they suffer more, and they think they should count more. They should count less in winning a position. And also what we saw before, they think that having an internal sponsor still count, but should count less, because obviously this generates inequalities in terms of power according to the power of the sponsor that everybody has. While internationalization, that is one of the criteria of the excellence dimensions or rhetoric, internationalization should count more both for early and late career, and also soft skills. So the importance to be able to work in teams we have, for example, and to work in to coordinate and so the so-called soft skills. Yes. Figure 2 shows also differences between areas, between STEM and SSH, and actually not big differences emerge, but just that STEM young researcher put more emphasis on the internationalization, that probably is still more important for their career than, and they think should matter a lot. Okay, what about next, thanks. What about if we look at another dimension that you explored in the web survey, that is not what criteria work and should work for when winning a position, but what about the gender situation in the department? Is there inequalities or not? We try to capture these with these 4 items. Obviously, much more items could have been included in the web survey, but we had a trade-off because in order to have a sufficient response rate to be able to have a reliable analysis, we needed to go to a relatively short questionnaire, because we know that long questionnaire have a high not response rate. But still, with these 4 items, I think it's very interesting to see that in this case, gender matters. So women tend to think that the gender disparities, gender asymmetries exist more in their department than what men believes. So women have a higher perception of the existence of gender inequalities. Not only do women perceive that there is more gender inequality than what men perceive within their organizations, but also they are in general more in favor of policies to tackle gender inequalities. We ask for different kinds of policies, that also some policies that are the basis of pillars in the gender equality plans. And the women are more in favor, which it makes sense, because if women perceive that gender inequalities is there more than men, then they tend to be more in favor of policies for tackling gender inequalities. These are just very little insights. Obviously, there is much more. Also, interesting insights from the collection of the meso indicators of the percentage of women and men in different positions, the percentage of resources going to men and women. gender in teaching, in recruitment, career progression, selection committee, governing bodies, but obviously there is no time to show that. But we will soon have some things published on Zenodo on more data from this MINDtheGEPs assessing gender imbalances. So I'll give the ball to Manuela to give some insights from the qualitative part. Thanks for the attention.
Thank you very much, Cristina. So the ball is mine now. And Cristina Solera already introduced the qualitative part in terms of how many interviews we did and who were the people we interviewed. Please, you can go on. What we are going to see in this presentation are a group of emerging issues. We cannot look at all issues that have emerged from the qualitative material, from the experiences, and from the narrative of those who have been interviewed. We can give you some insights on that. So here we have an overview of the main issues that according to us are important and interesting also in then thinking about which kind of changes we need in terms of gender equality plan. So please, you can go on. The first question and the emerging issue that I want to discuss has to do with the intensification of job demands and with a narrative around time pressure. So we see in many interviews that researchers, especially early and also advanced, talk about intensive work time and rhythm that have been exacerbated by COVID. Some of our interviews have been done during the COVID first outbreak COVID time, but also in the years afterwards, in which some arrangement also in terms of telework were still in place. What we see and what emerged from these discourses is the presence of overwork for many of our interviews, and the prevalence, of course, in terms also of what already we know from the literature of a model of unconditional adult work that was mentioning before that with Cristina. The research work is intended for many researchers and professors and people who work in the scientific area, research area, as a total devotion to work. So we see also some people with aspect that we can conduct to work alcoholism, especially is present among those who are who have no children, for instance, who are single people in terms also of household type. So please go on. So here we have some quotation to give a journey, in the words that our interview use. For instance, Saur C, 29, early career in the area of STEM, says, I didn't understand just how difficult it is for researchers to attain a permanent position. I didn't realize that most research contracts are only 1 year. And here we have another narrative by Carmen, also early career, but in the social science and humanity area. And she says, I am really trying to cure the anxiety inculcated by this perverse system, because it is an anxiety that is often paralyzing. It has often slowed down my career. So these are some testimony of how difficult it is, especially for early career, to be in that position in different terms, of precarity, but also of pressure. Next, please. Another topic and issue that we think deserve attention has to do with the intensification of scientific production. Is, in the words of many our interview, also key informant. The prevalence, not only in STEM, but also in the SSH area of quantitative criteria for the evaluation of the work and also for the prospect of career advancement. So within this context of strong publish or perish principle and climate in which most of our interview seems to live. Some of those were underlying also this connection between the research time, if you are in the laboratory or you have to do some field work, and then when the output in terms of publication comes. There is a period of time that is long sometime in connection with what is required for the advancement, for the career, for go ahead. So please, next, we have here some productivity discourses that we have selected. For instance, Anita says, it's a tragedy. I mean, one work all time, there are no hours, there are no weekend, not. Because you have to achieve a goal. It's not an office job. I mean, but maybe it's also my fault. I'm not fast enough. And she says, concerning productivity, it's very present element. So, you have to produce. So you are always trying to produce. Or here we have a key informant mail says, it's all then multiplied to the paroxysm. Because to become associate professor, you have to have 2 books. To become full professor, 3, and so on. I mean, it's absurd thing. We are multiplying the deforestation of the Amazonic forest because of these crazy rules that force us all to publish more and more. Please, next. Other issue very important has to do with excellence. This is especially found in our organization in the academic and the research organization, also the Italian one. Of course, we don't find that so in this construction, this conceptual construction in the private company. We see excellence because merit is considered as neutral and quantifiable rule. And excellence behind merit become the benchmark of the evaluation with a strong centrality, as we have already seen, of performance, of the pressure to publish. And we see that this excellence rhetoric and discourses, very vague, sometimes we will see, are embedded in the daily work of both early career, advanced career, and also those who are in leadership position. Gendered excellence, of course, are sometimes perceived as not going well one with the other. So they are perceived, the excellence discourses, as a barrier, no? And we will see which the effect also term of individual well-being and of organization also well-being. Please, next. Here we have some discourses around excellence. This key informant says, so he can be a director of a department, head of human resources, or a vice director. He says, I've never understood what excellence means. You build around the words excellent a series of rhetorical devices that really bother to me. So I try to use it as little as possible. So he has a very strong critical position. We have also other dimensions of excellence. For instance, this researcher says, excellent researchers, so this is applied to individual because excellence can be applied to organization, but can be applied also to single individual. And this Marco says, are excellent researchers are people with high mobility, no? The issue of mobility that Cristina was mentioning before, not because they want to, but because they are forced to, because otherwise you don't really have a path as a postdoctoral researcher. In this case, it's a STEM. In the STEM area is more stronger, this idea of the importance of mobility, although we see also differences among our implementing organization. For instance, we see in Poland less emphasis on this issue that we don't find in Ireland or in Italy in the different implementing organizations. And this key informant says we must stop overemphasizing the factory, the product, the workaholic approach. It's scientifically demonstrable that these are women more than men. If the prospect is that of having to wait for 6 years, killing themselves by working day and night, 7 days a week, to produce 24 jobs before crossing the threshold and enter a tenure position, women will give up. They will always be enough fanatic men ready to accept it, but I don't think there will be the same number of women. This is a key informant male of the STEM area. Please go on. Another issue that we have investigated deeply has to do with work and private life and work-family balance. And here many issues come around this topic. Of course, first of all, how much parenthood, being parents, and especially being mother can be an element of penalty in the career. We see many postponement strategy around having a family, meaning having a child or another child. And we see also strategy of childlessness, very widespread in some implementing organizations around our interview, especially women, but also men, in particular STEM, as I said, and also difficulty to balance work and care, not only for children, as is well-known issue, not only in research and scientific area, but also for frail family members. We see dimension that has to do with the absence of recovery time. I have no recovery time. Of course, some emphasize that this is a work, being a researcher in the different organizations, flexible, but sometimes we observe also what has been defined, and we can define in the passion trap. I work for passion. I work in the day, but also in the night, because I like to work. I have a passion for my research. And it's difficult to put a boundary. I work with headache. Some interview says, I would pay to take a 1 week holiday, says another interview. Okay, let's go on. Here we see some discourses around this issue. If you have a child, you produce less. And so, because you are evaluated for your productivity, while you are having children, others produce. Therefore, they pass you by. And so that's why nobody has children. Everybody knows that when you have a child, it will undermine your career. Of course, this idea in the mind of our interview has an effect in terms also then of behavior. And Carolina says, for instance, in another side of the care and difficulty to balance work and family, what I find is that more and more people are burdened with healthy parents. And it's also like we keep thinking in terms of children. So she has emphasized that there is not only the issue of children. And she says, I had a quite large group of elderly employees with even old parents who needed care. So there is also this issue. Here we have an interesting mail discourse quotation about being not being fathers, and says, I am 40, and I don't have children. Who knows? The obstacle is that of having a job security, which is not just let's say, the fixed job, but especially the precariousness of the place where you will work. So this is associated, the condition in which he is, his early career, and our early career can be very early in terms of position, and he is thinking about, maybe I will not be father, or when can be possible. Next, please. Stereotypes, self-selection, and glass ceiling. Yes, we observe that women perceive more than men that they have not been supported enough throughout their career in their narrative. And we see also that some of women, especially in SSH area, work on topics that are considered non-mainstreaming or less important than others. So here we have also an issue of the content of the knowledge. It's not only an issue of the number, women and men, but what we study and how we study, how we think in transformative way also the knowledge. We observe process of self-exclusion, of course, as literature has widely demonstrated, of low level of self-esteem by women. For instance, we have some quotation, please, next. Here, for instance, around self-selection processes. Here we have a quotation by Olympia, female, advanced career, 43. She says, women leadership in a company where there are far more men than women is a sense very difficult. And here we have Pia, STEM area, advanced career, and she says, sometimes I think that we, meaning women, we are still the obstacle of ourselves. This is interesting quotation. And here we have Lina, who says also STEM area. To succeed in this career, you need to have from the start, she's laughing, let's say a male personality. So some self-selection process still in place very much. Next. Gender inequality and public policy. So inequality, the principle of gender equity, in the discourses of I have no time to explore, to go deeply in this issue, but we have a lot of materials also qualitative around that. We see that most of them think that have a positive impact, the gender equity in the organization. Not only in terms of equal opportunity, the problem of numbers, for instance, but also to improve, this is very important, work and well-being of all people living in the university or in the research organization. However, we see also that several respondents find the affirmative actions, such as quota in decision-making level, in leadership position, or in recruitment, as counterproductive because they are seen as a risk of producing the opposite result. We see also from the quantitative data that Cristina has shown. So there are some, not only men, but also women who are quite afraid about this kind of measure. Not all, but a group. They think why? Because they think they undermine the principle of merit, of excellence, which we see has been intended as a principle gender neutral. We have not a sex and then gender, we could say. So I think I have closed, and I just want to say that these few insights in the qualitative material we have collected show strongly how important it is to promote a systematic change, both in the cultural area, but also in the structural area. So I give the ball now to Lucio to speak about that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Manuela. Thank you, Cristina. And I mean, you give a picture of the research activity of the MINDtheGEP project. The following step within the activity was using this knowledge to design structural change process within the 7 implementing organizations that are participating in the MINDtheGEP. So for me, is now, I mean, not easy to give you a complete picture of the 7 gender equality plans that have been designed, because I mean there are many actions there, and so the best option is that if you are interested, you just go on the website of each of the 7 organizations, and you have, or you go on the MINDtheGEP website, where you can find all the 7 gender equality plans with all the action, both structural and cultural. What is interesting, I believe, is to share the approach with which this group of people, so the MINDtheGEP project, have tackled the design of the measure within the different organizations. So I'll try to do this in the few minutes now, and then we open the floor with the participants. Next slide, please. Yes, so I mean, based on the data, and you have just seen how many information and data the project have collected, we designed the measure. And I think this is the first strategic approach of MINDtheGEPs. So we as a group believe that we cannot design a measure without having evidence on the organization. So the first input to design our GEPs was having a huge amount of information to then be able to design the measure. So all the measures that you will find within the gender equality plan are based on information that have been collected, both on administrative side, because as we know, the administrative information are somehow very rich to understand inequality, gender inequality in the organization, and survey or direct information collected through research. Then the second approach was having both structural and cultural action. As we have shared with the 2 colleagues before me, I mean, the problem we face is so complex that the level of activity cannot be or should not be only at structural level or at cultural level. These need to be done at both levels at the same time, so it's quite challenging, but we recognize that both structural and cultural action are important. Third point, in designing our GEPs, we all share the vision that we don't want, I mean, vague measure. So clear objective, targets, advancement indicator, and responsibility. This was central. Then in many of our organizations, before the MINDtheGEP gender equality plan, there was, let's say, not a central coordination of gender equality policy within the organization. And what our GEPs have been trying to do during this 2 years of project, and will continue to do this in the next 2 years of project, is building a central coordination. Gender equality cannot be on the shoulder of a small group within an organization, because otherwise this will never be central in the organization. And last point, training, language, and gendered innovation should be key elements for cultural change have been key elements within the different GEPs. Next slide, please. Okay, so I go now in the detail of some of these approaches. So again, data, the administrative and survey data on the personnel should be a key activity to design organizational change. So all the activity and all the measure designed have been based on evidence and on data collection. To do this, many of our implementing partner, have tried to appoint a role within the organization. So having someone with a clear responsibility on collecting this data, and this is what we call a gender data manager. Basically, within every organization, there is a statistical officer or someone collecting administrative data. But if we give if we strengthen this position, this means that we will have more and better information on how the research staff is organized, is working, is proceeding in the career, and so on. So all the GEPs have tried to identify and straighten the position of a gender data manager within the organization. The case of our CNR, we had established and really give importance to the activity of a ICT department, giving the responsibility to a specific person who have been changing the way the database are organized to extract the information that are relevant for the gender equality. And this have been an activity that I have common with all the other GEPs. Then, importantly, all the GEPs have been working to publish, update, and monitor the gender data on the institutional page. In our view, is crucial to have on each institutional page one website, one web page with all the information on the gender equality, because this gives visibility and raise the importance of the gender equality within the strategy of the organization. In our case at CNR, we now have a CNR per la parità di genere, a clear web page on the home page connected to gender equality, and this is something that has been the same for all the partners. Then, I mean, design and monitor the impact of the measure. This is central because we know, I mean, we all know how the risk of lip service, how they call, I mean, so just action with, I mean, with no really monitoring of the impact is just one of the problem of the gender equality rhetoric, I would say. Many organizations say, I'm doing this, but then the impact is not really out there. In our case, all the measures have been designed with a monitoring system connected, so we should see how the measure will impact in the organization. And then when you have good data out of there on your personnel and staff, you can explore really different dimensions of gender inequality that you just cannot do it before if you don't have the good quality of data. And this can be from mobility to publication to responsibility and so on. Next slide, please. Okay, structural and cultural action. This has been cited before. So all our GEPs include structural action as care service to support parenthood, extra funds for women back from the maternity leave that we know, as the research has shown, is a crucial moment for the career. Work-life balance, I mean, is a core issue in many of our GEPs. But then all this structural action goes together with cultural action. So training on gender equality or bias within our world of academic and research organization is central, because many people just don't feel that this is a problem or is an issue in their organization.
Lucio froze. Okay, so Cristina, would you be comfortable continuing the presentation?
Yes, but it was about the end. So the idea is to combine structural and cultural action in order to, as Lucio was saying, I mean, not just fixing the numbers, but also changing culture and structures. So for sure, doing a gender awareness training, and also these are cultural action, but also work on that that issues that we know are problematic, especially for women's career, like the maternity wall, the motherhood penalty. And so some actions like giving extra funds for women when they are back from maternity leave, research funds, or Lucio's back. Sorry, they gave me the word to go on.
Sorry, the connection fault, and I don't know why, but now should work. Yeah, apologize.
Okay,
so I was just saying that all the MINDtheGEP GEPs have both structural and cultural action. The reason is clear, I think. So, I mean, you can go on and see on all our GEPs how we have structured this measure. Then clear objective, target, and advancement. I mean, this was shared among the partner. We all have in our structure of the GEPs goal, targets, and monitoring indicators. For each implemented measure, we identify responsibility, because as we all know, it's not only important to put out what we want to do, but it's then the translation into reality often become the problem. So we have tried to identify clear responsibility, both with a reference person in case when this was possible, or in case the function was responsible for the implementing of that activity. So again, the data collection, both from administrative source or survey, should be in place at regular stage. So after 1 or 2 years, the activity should be monitored, and with the feedback loop possibly also changed, because I mean, a measure can be changed or can be ameliorate if the measure has a problem. But what is important is to have a feedback loop of information on how the measure is going. And then also what all partners of MINDtheGEP have been doing and working on is sharing the measure with top management. For us was clear that without a commitment, I mean, there was another possibility of implementing the GEP. So much of our effort have been sharing all the design of the measure based on the evidence we collected within the qualitative and quantitative activity, sharing this measure with top management and also with the many committees and unions we all have in our organization. These activities have been incredibly time consuming, but we believe is a prerequisite, because you cannot, you don't implement action if you don't share them before with the organization. The next slide, please. Okay, then another point that all our GEPs have as activity, we realize that the central coordination is important and is crucial, and all our GEPs have pushed to establish a central coordination through what we call GEPIB, basically a gender equality plan implementation body, so a working group or a committee that has the goal of implementing the GEP at central level. This cannot be done in a department, cannot be done in one institute. This should be at the central level of the organization. And we realize also that the coordination of gender equality policy is crucial and should be on a clear responsibility of a person or of a group of persons, because often many organizations state that they are for gender equality. They also maybe have some responsible person, but the coordination capacity of the person or of the function is not really effective. So all our GEPs have been working to establish a coordination mechanism at the core of the organization. In our case, I just cited the GNR. We now have a gender equality officer. It is one of our colleagues, and she has exactly the goal of connecting the different departments working on the issue of gender equality, but with a clear mandate from the top management. So, and this kind of function, we believe, is central, and all our partners have been working for this. So having this in place, so having a gender equality officer or a gender equality working group within the central administration or the central coordination office of the organization also means that this will survive beyond the project, because we don't want to, I mean, we want to create a structural change that goes far beyond the MINDthegEPs project that will end in 2025. So creating this kind of structure within the organization, we believe, and we will work for the sustainability of the gender equality policy after the MINDthegEPs project. Next slide, please. Then let's say the cultural side, all our gender equality plan have a lot of training. Many training activity will be implemented during 2023 and 24. So one very nice example is from UNITO, that with the CIS, the Research Center on Gender Equality, are offering to the all Athenaeum or the all academic the possibilities to have gender studies. This is one important activity from UNITO, or another activity. I just cite UNITO and Siena, but just for the Italian side, but all the others are doing very similar activity in their organization, like the monitoring and the balancing within the outreach, no? So the communication of scientific result outside. We try to monitor what the balance is within the panels. So UNITO has an activity on that. We at Siena, we just joined this European campaign who's called No Women, No Panel. So basically is a way of monitoring all the panels and scientific communication organized by the organization to understand at the end of each year how balanced they are in terms of participation between men and women among the experts invited to the panels. And then, like in our case, we are trying to train or offer training also to the high level top management position, because we believe that all, including the high level top management, should be interested in gender equality as one of the structural problem of research and innovation sector. And they, being the manager of the organization, should also share some training. So in our case, we will be offering 1 day of training at the very top level of the organization. Then many of us are working to have some gender innovation award or recognition, because this is one of the issues we also believe is important. So including the gender dimension in the research we are doing, so including in the design of our research, in the research question. And we, I mean, I think Danske and Siena, but many other within MINDtheGEPs will organize some award for the best research of the year within each organization that have had the gender innovation perspective. And yeah, next slide. Also, I think I'm there. Yes, I'm there. So this was a very quick insight on the approach that guided the design of the gender equality plan of the MINDtheGEPs consortium. Here is the consortium. You can go on the MINDtheGEPs website, where you have all the gender equality plan. Some of them are under revision. So let's say last year they were designed, and in 1 year we are going also to revise or reinforce or change some of the measure. But all the gender equality plan are on the website. And I also take this opportunity to thank I mean, all the colleagues from the consortium, and especially our supporting partners, so Kay and I, and Uppsala University and the Elsevier, that are working to support the gender equality plan in the other 7 implementing organizations. Thank you.